Minasan, welcome back for a first round of Dragon Ball research. That's right, this is the first time doing Dragon Ball research. Very famous. It really set the standards for what we all know as shonen. I mean, there was shonen before that, but this like really set the standards. Like this is the template in which many shonen followed after Akira Toriyama by Okonios delivered us one of the most awesome action-packed martial arts martial arts stories, imaginable, until the power creep started happening. Today I'm going to be visiting for the first time NRDzilla. NRDzilla channel, links down in the description below. The video is The Truth About Being a Saiyan, Saiyan History and Lore. I'm very interested in seeing how Akira Toriyama came up with this, because this is what the description says. The Saiyans are always a fascination subject to me, and so I decided to go through some of Toriyama's interviews while cross-referencing manga and anime. This is a very rare opportunity to find a more documentary-like video, to go deep into that's delving deep into the mind of a creator, and hopefully we'll get to learn exactly what went into the design process, the character creation process of the Saiyans themselves, given that Goku was never really legitimately established as a Saiyan in the Dragon Ball series. It was on Dragon Ball Z that the Saiyans were then established, and basically pivot the whole story to an intergalactic ethos. So, in addition, make sure you get your notes out, as I'll be doing my end of viewing research thoughts, and the research thoughts, and this is a call to action. Comment, like, subscribe, follow, hit the notification button, and let us begin the research. Vaya con Dios, Toriyama-sama. Toriyama-sensei.
Man, I love the Saiyans, dude. And I'm not just talking about our boys. I just find the culture and society surrounding them so fascinating. We'd see their world through the stories of Bardock and like flashbacks from other characters who lived back then, but there was still so much of the world and lore I just didn't understand. So I decided to reread some of the manga, rewatch some anime episodes. I went through some of those, those really crazy interviews Toriyama would do from time to time in V-Jump. In the process, I found some really interesting details and thought they were kind of worth sharing. Now, while I have my own feelings about what information is really relevant to modern material or not, that's not really the point of this video.
Okay.
I see this as some kind of experiment, taking what I can find and squeezing it together, painting it all on a nice little canvas.
Okay,
so,
okay.
If you want to entertain this little idea I have, let us not waste time and begin.
So you're running on theory.
The original Saiyan homeworld was revealed to us in Dragon Ball Super as Planet Sadala, which you guys might already know is where the Saiyans of Universe 6 currently live. We don't know much about Universe 7 Sadala, not even that much about Universe 6's, to be honest. However, the Dragon Ball Super manga by Toyotaro shows most of the buildings are the same ones in Planet Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super Broly. Even Cabba's armor, from Vegeta's statements, is the armor the Saiyans wore before joining Frieza's army. Therefore, it's not unreasonable to consider ancient Saiyans could have also shared a similar aesthetic to current-day Universe 6 Sadala. However, these Saiyans were not quite as allied together as we see today, as we know of two opposing groups, the Righteous-Hearted Saiyans and the Evil Saiyans. From what it seemed, the Righteous-Hearted ones were few in number, because we only know that 6 of them started rebelling against the Evil Saiyans. It could be that the 6 led a larger rebellion, but I didn't really find any statements supporting that. The war most likely ended in tragedy for the heroes, as the group's sole survivor, Yamoshi, turned into the earliest known Super Saiyan. Except for Bardock, an episode of Bardock, but shh, we're not talking about that. It is described that his ferocious fighting style and wild transformation frighten the other Saiyans. Toriyama, in this same interview where he dropped the Yamushi lore, also talked about the concept of S-cells. I know, S-cells get made fun of in the community as just Dragon Ball's
Oh no, the Toriyama Sensei ended up pulling a George Lucas on this one. Oh no, that's bad. Oh, I hope he did not get that idea from George Lucas.
Surface level concept aside, Toriyama brings up an interesting notion. We always wonder why Goku transformed specifically against Frieza, when that was far from the first time he got mad in a fight. According to Toriyama, while having a gentle spirit is a quick way to get enough S-cells to fuel that big explosion of anger, there is one more key factor. However, one can't reach the quantity necessary for becoming a Super Saiyan simply by having a gentle spirit, so a certain amount of battle power is indeed necessary. Looked at in this light, it's easy to see why becoming a Super Saiyan came easy for Goku. Bringing this back on topic, this either means ancient Saiyans were incredibly strong, or base form Yamoshi was insanely strong compared to the other Saiyans back then. Just to touch on this side of the argument, while there's not much evidence, he could have become a legendary Super Saiyan like Broly. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, Kaba says that Kale in her Berserk state may have become the legendary Saiyan, a demonic Saiyan that appears once every 1,000 years. Once they awaken, it's all over. Their power keeps growing, and they rampage until they basically self-destruct. Kale does indeed share some similarities with Universe 7 Saiyans like Broly, so it's not totally impossible. Broly's version in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie is also simply just called Super Saiyan Full Power, just as a side note.
Oh boy.
Although, you know, there's clearly more going on with it than just being regular Super Saiyan. Vegeta suggested that Kale's Berserk form has an over-reliance on power and is full of openings. Therefore, it's easy to predict and evade, which leads to the user eventually tiring out and dying. While I don't personally think Yamoshi had this form, the fate of the legendary Saiyan parallels his own downfall. Regardless of the...
Oh, that's crazy. So... basically, if you achieve... so why didn't Broly die then? If that's the case. If Broly achieved the same form as Yamoshi, why didn't he die?
Form, Yamoshi would eventually die in battle due to exhaustion and being outnumbered. This then would begin the legend of the Super Saiyan that characters like Vegeta would try to attain and Frieza would come to fear. After his death, Yamoshi's spirit wandered the universe for 6 righteous-hearted Saiyans in order to create what is known as the Super Saiyan God. The Battle of Gods movie depicts a good-hearted, unnamed Super Saiyan God against a horde of evil Saiyans that have transformed into great apes, calling this the legend of the Super Saiyan God. Whether Yamoshi somehow tapped into this power with the help of his 5 other comrades, we really don't know, but he must have realized somehow that if 5 righteous Saiyans poured their ki into a 6th one, it would create a form of godly might that would transcend all other forms. Yamoshi's ghost was sensed both by Beerus and a Namekian elder at some point, creating Beerus' prophecy of fighting the Super Saiyan God one day, and the legend of this form being recorded in the Namekian Book of Legends. Remember this random book Shenron talks about, and it's never mentioned again? It's only there just so Shenron can somehow tell them the legend of the Super Saiyan God? Really cool. From what the game Dragon Ball Legends has shown us, there had to have been a Super Saiyan God before Goku, because in a flashback, Giblet tells Shallot that they have the blood of the original Super Saiyan God in their veins, and therefore the form is their birthright. They wish to carry on the legacy of opposing the evil Saiyans, which Giblet refers to their descendants, the evil Saiyans that is, as the blood of the tainted, and while they, the brothers, are the blood of the defeated. Cumber, an ancient evil Saiyan from Super Dragon Ball Heroes, also got enraged at the sight of Goku's Super Saiyan God state.
Alright, so he's relying on video game lore also. Not just only...
I know you can connect the dots on that one. I believe you're smart enough to do that. Vegeta, upon meeting Kaba, explained the fate of the Saiyans. Part of it being Sadala fell due to a civil war, and then they moved to planet Vegeta afterwards. This could be the battle with Yamoshi's group being referenced here, but we really don't know. Once Sadala fell, whether that means it was destroyed or abandoned, the Saiyans moved to Planet Plant, home of the Sulfurians, also known in the dub as the Tuffles. Half the size of the Saiyans and the current owners of this planet, it really did not take very long for some fights to break out and full-scale war. While the Saiyans were far superior in strength, they were still outnumbered and technologically inferior to this advanced civilization. This resulted in a stalemate for a little while, but all the Saiyans had to do was hold out long enough for the full moon, which appeared on this planet every 8 years. Once in their giant ape forms, the tide was turned, and the Sulfurians were wiped out. But, as a warrior race, they were restless without constant bloodshed, so they set their sights to the stars in order to conquer more, but sadly for them, they were limited in their reach. Then, as we all know, they made contact with the Frieza Force, known at this time as King Cold's Empire. Whether it be because of looted technology from the Sulfurians, technology from other conquered planets, or King Cold's Empire supplying them, the only advanced technology they have in abundance serves the functions of space travel and combat. In the original Z anime, the Scouters were invented by the Sulfurians, and through the Saiyans made their way into the hands of the Frieza Force. But in Dragon Ball Super Broly, we see that Frieza gives the Saiyans the Scouters to replace the Scout Scopes they use. Considering the lack of technological advancements for the Saiyans, we could possibly infer that the Sulfurians may have created the Scout Scopes, or something like them, that the Saiyans took and used for themselves until Frieza arrived. Or maybe, you know, King Cold saw those, was like, that's really cool, and took the Scout Scopes, like, to his own scientists. Then they made the Scouters from that, and then brought them with Frieza's welcoming party, and Frieza's like, hey guys, this is like your theme, but way cooler. Also, you're my slaves now. You're my slaves.
Hello, monkey.
Hey, this is me in editing. I just realized I forgot to talk about it in this section, but earlier I mentioned Vegeta told Kaba his armor is what the Saiyans wore before Frieza gave them the iconic Saiyan armor. And we know that Giblet and Shallot also wore Saiyan armor. So, there you go.
Okay, there's a connection.
Planet Vegeta is quite underdeveloped compared to other planets in the Frieza Force. They don't even look as good as Namekian housing, dude. And that's as backwater country as you get. The houses of the low class
they have so much vegetation.
Wood and stone. Maybe the fact the Saiyans don't tend to stay home very long means they don't ever have a need to improve their living conditions.
They're probably more nomadic, a nomadic race, given how easily they abandoned the previous planet. How they left the previous planet. It makes perfect sense for them to do that, you know, to be like that. That's why they have stone structures, because they don't expect to stay for long. If they run around, if they feel like they could find better resources or better place to do battle and such, it would make sense if that's what they are.
The most complex buildings I've seen was like the spaceport where Paragus took off of to find Broly. Reminds me of the old
but Frieza probably provided that.
Structures the Bardock specials went with, but maybe it was created with the help of King Cold's army. Some of the most advanced technologies we've seen in these buildings are like healing pods and baby incubators. And of course, the royal family has that fully furnished palace, because of course the elites have it better than everyone else. They also have a variety of different spaceships, like the ones at the spaceport, and the classic attack ball, or space pod, which members of the Frieza Force also use. Might have been another gift from King Cold's army, maybe. It should be noted that Saiyans must have had some early form of space travel technology, like centuries ago, as they had to somehow escape planet Sadala, and could have been conquering worlds around them before that. They also raised some low-class babies as engineers, so they must have a grasp on constructing and maintaining machines. And if the Z filler's anything to go off of, they did utilize Sulfurian technology for use in limited space travel, and simply needed help from other organizations to reach further into the universe. Hey, remember these random guys? Remember them? The dub called them Arcosians. And I was gaslit for a while into thinking that was the name of Frieza's race. We still don't know the name of those guys. While the Saiyan's ability to breathe in dangerous environments
and we
is
never will.
inconsistent. Because, you know, like, Bardock's up in space, and Goku's out up in space, and they're like, okay, but then when they're fighting Moro, they're like, we can't go out into space. And then Goku can drown. DBS and Broly shows that they do have breathing masks to protect themselves from any hazardous air. And outside of a laser pistol in Dragon Ball Super Broly, the only kind of weapon we really see the Saiyans utilize is the Cybermen, a violent life form discovered on a different planet that can be planted and grown. They are extremely rare and valuable since it is difficult to harvest the bulbs they grow from. And people use the idea that if you can't beat a Cyberman, you must be pretty weak, even though Yamcha actually won the fight itself, but that's not important right now. But their supposedly low power is actually proof of the trend that Saiyans were pretty weak in the grand scheme of the universe. How so? Well, keep a mental note. Write a little sticky note. Put it on your brain. Keep it for later. It'll come back. In Dragon Ball Minus, there are only several thousand Saiyans by their last days. Quite the low population, don't you think? Especially for a spacefaring civilization.
Yeah.
We'll get to that one soon. Make another sticky note. Saiyans at birth have their battle power read, already having their place in the world dictated from the moment they're born. Almost all Saiyans are low-class warriors, with only 10 in the whole population qualifying as mid-class warriors, such as Nappa. The only Saiyan elites at this time are, of course, King Vegeta III and Prince Vegeta IV.
Of course, they're royalty.
Ranks of Saiyans are determined by their innate latent battle power, but they can be promoted if their battle power rises greatly. Interestingly though, despite Bardock surpassing some mid-class Saiyans in power and being just as strong as a low-class Saiyan can get, he could not become a mid-class warrior according to Toriyama. I guess he didn't submit his paperwork or something. It was a little late on the application form. If a certain standard of power is surpassed at birth, Saiyans are deemed upper-level warriors, where fit to be raised
it's a caste
into
system.
soldiers. Saiyan infants whose power is deemed too low have two paths at this age. Those being either becoming an engineer or an infiltration baby, which is a child sent off-world to conquer a planet as they grow up on it. If they grow strong enough and succeed in conquering the planet, they then return to Planet Vegeta as a low-class warrior. Saiyans have to have a great memory, even as a baby, or somehow conditioned in a way to recall that they have to conquer the planet and return home, because Raditz somehow expected Goku to remember him and his mission even when Raditz knew he was sent as a child. It's kind of weird.
No, that's not weird. That's not weird. If I, from what I recall correctly, there was a flashback where, because Goku bonked his head. Goku bonked his head. And from what I understood, he was very volatile and very violent when he was found by Gohan. When Grandpa Gohan found him, Goku was extremely violent. He was very destructive until he bonked his head. When he bonked his head, he forgot everything. So he didn't. So his memories didn't just disappear or anything. It was all programmed in him, and that actually makes a lot of sense as to why the whole Saiyans suddenly popped up in Dragon Ball Z, because that's what happened. And if I remember right, Goku said to Raditz that he bonked his head. He's like, "How'd you not remember?" And Goku said, "I bonked my head when I was a little kid, and I don't remember anything after that." I never, he's like, I never remembered anything, and it shocked Raditz. But that's what happened to Goku. He was a very violent little kid, and in his violence, he bonked his head and lost his memories.
Saiyans can also basically eat anything edible and don't have any likes or dislikes of food, meaning they can adapt to any planet's ecosystem relatively easily.
Yeah, they're crazy
Jaco,
OP.
The Galactic Patrolman manga, Jaco reveals that he was sent to Earth to stop and kill the young Goku, mentioning the methods the infiltration babies use to eventually take over a planet. He says if the planet is ruled by a powerless race like this Earth, they will usually send a small child to slowly do away with the people on that planet. They have a very long childhood, so they can deceive the people around them as a child until they grow up.
Wow.
After that, their body will quickly grow into a size that is suited to fight, and they will continue to create havoc without hardly ever aging. However, most don't make it back to planet Vegeta alive, usually because they are killed by the planet's inhabitants. According to Toriyama, Raditz himself, while low class, was actually considered an upper level warrior, and therefore was assigned to the same group of warriors as Nappa, even before Vegeta became part of the group. This indicates that if an upper level warrior can be at the level of Raditz, and that the average highest level of a low class Saiyan is an upper level warrior, that means most Saiyans were weaker than Raditz in power.
Wow.
When Raditz met Goku, perhaps he thought Goku was already at an acceptable level of strength for a low class Saiyan. I mean, he thought he was good enough to at least join Vegeta's group, and actually told him they need him to help tip the scales on fighting a difficult planet. So at bare minimum, he must have thought he was at least average for a low-class warrior. We know what Goku went through on Earth before this. With the help of his friends and mentors, overcame hardships to become the greatest in the world. However, as we know, Earth is a relatively weak backwater planet in the universe. So it's safe to say most planets in this universe probably have stronger populations than Earth on them. So let's walk through this. A Saiyan is sent to a planet, likely receives no help from its inhabitants, and is somehow meant to eradicate a population with nearly the same power level that Goku had when he fought Raditz? Yeah, this is why the mortality rate of the Saiyans is so high, and why they can barely increase their population beyond a few thousand. Even the Cybermen, according to Toriyama, are so wild that only a few warriors are capable of handling them, like Nappa or Vegeta. If Cybermen, who are near equal to Raditz in power, are this powerful compared to the average Saiyan, then the odds of survival are grim for adult Saiyans, let alone infiltration babies. But all Saiyans, no matter how weak or strong, always have one trick up their sleeves, as long as they still have their tail.
That's the key factor. That's the key factor. That's what they bank on.
Known as a grade 8. Such a transformation, stated to be a 10 times increase in their power level, makes these weak Saiyan warriors into monsters capable of exterminating most planets' populations.
Yeah, see, you see, because that's the mistake he's making with his criticism on this, because they don't, because why waste your most strongest warriors to go and take on a planet that they could get taken out on, when you could send a kid that could look up at the moon and turn into and turn into Ozai, into an Ozai form, and just wreak absolute havoc with a power level that is 10 times that is amplified 10 times over, and nobody could be able to stop it. If Goku's average level is 400, that it's amplified to 4,000 easy. It's amplified to 4,000, and thus putting him at the level of the others, and that's their logic, you know, saying that if you could be able in terms of destroying the entire planet, as long as they look at the full moon, of course. If you don't see the full moon, then they got to do all kinds of sneaky tricks and everything and to be destructive, but by becoming an Ozai, a giant-sized Ozai type, after looking at the moon, nobody's gonna stop a 4,000 power level. Keep in mind, as he pointed out, Raditz is very powerful. Like, he caught a bullet, all right, and flung it back to a farmer, and Goku went at 400. So at 1,000, Goku amplified it at his power level 400, amplified by 10 is 4,000. With Raditz at 1,000, nothing's going to stop a 4,000 power level Ozai, no matter what. And Goku would have trampled the whole entire planet. And remember, they said, as it's pointed out, it's gradual over time. It's gradual over time. So basically, he's a giant kaiju. He's a giant kaiju waiting to happen. So it makes sense why they would send the lower levels out there, because they're not going to waste their best guys to obliterate a planet that's giant size, when you could send out a little kid with slow aging, and could turn into a giant Ozai and go kaiju on everybody.
Explains why anytime you see a Saiyan in any media invading a planet, They're always a great ape.
Yep.
Why? Because they're kind of useless without it. This is me in editing right now. I just realized something. Another reason Raditz probably would have wanted to bring Goku along to fight that tough planet that not even him, Vegeta, and Nappa could take on is because he probably expected Goku to have a tail. And that would be like the one
There
way
you
he
go.
was useful. And that's why he was like, "What happened to your tail, Kakarot?" Because that was the one way Goku was going to be helpful. However, their odds aren't helped by the fact that most Saiyans can't even rely on other Saiyans to help them. For example, the baseline support system, a family dynamic, is non-existent in the life of a typical Saiyan. The only family that really exists is the Vegeta family line, who of course wishes to maintain power and influence over their race, except for Vegeta's poor little brother Tarbal, who was sent away for being so weak. However, the man named Bardock is a special case, because when he worked with a fellow Saiyan Gine on missions, he developed a special bond that is uncommon for their race.
Yep.
Notions of romance and marriage just simply aren't important to the lower class. However, when asked about Bardock's family structure, Toriyama had this to say: "The quartet of Bardock, Gine, Raditz, and Kakarot make up Bardock's family, such as it is, but all four of them were never together."
Yeah.
Also, I think Bardock himself might have had siblings, but perhaps even Bardock himself doesn't really know, and at any rate, he probably has no interest in it either.
That's
if
sad.
Bardock himself, a man with unusual attachments for a Saiyan, had so little notion of family, then the average Saiyan must have nearly no support from a family structure. They are beings who thrive on providing for and serving themselves, rather than anyone around them. The only thing close to an emotional connection comes from some Saiyans who developed a bond with a crew. Ironically, this is also the case for Bardock. This just spoke to a general lack of coordination and trust from one another, which would ironically make their trust in Frieza their doom, blind to any warnings beforehand. As we know, the fate of the Saiyans only ends in tragedy. Word of the stories and legends of the Super Saiyan and the Super Saiyan God, one way or another, made their way to Frieza's careful ears. While Frieza himself didn't actually believe in these legends, he was paranoid at the potential of the Saiyans to get stronger through combat, and them theoretically rising against him. To
Which they
alleviate
did.
his worries, he calls all Saiyans he can to planet Vegeta, so that they are all in one place. Once nearly the entirety of the race arrives on their planet, Frieza aims to destroy them once and for all, even willing to take the hit of losing around half of his Frieza fighting force to do so. Most Saiyans capable of returning made their way.
Much worse. They probably would take over Frieza's operation, King Cold. Like, just take over the whole operation. With Vegeta and his dad leading the way. Most definitely, they would overthrow Vegeta, and by overthrowing Vegeta, it'll be so dang powerful because of their power level creep from getting beaten up. It'll be very difficult for all the other Frieza forces to be able to stop them. They'll basically take all of Frieza's planets. All of Frieza's gains will be theirs, and whatever gains that Cooler and King Cold had. The Saiyans could take those two out and acquire those gains as well. The Saiyans were definitely a threat to the whole universe.
Way back to planet Vegeta, apart from Vegeta's group. Bardock suspects something is up with this congregation, and has a feeling there is something wicked behind all of it. Most other Saiyans seem pretty oblivious, and this is consistent in Dragon Ball Z when they laugh at Bardock for even trying to convince them to join his rebellion. This speaks to a trend of Saiyan ideology that was touched upon in Z. The idea that Saiyans follow a system of might makes right.
Yep.
Whenever an opponent showcases their superiority to the Saiyans, this race of supposedly prideful warriors either bends down or gives up hope. In this way, Frieza easily tamed them as their master, asserting his dreadful might upon them. Z Broly is the embodiment of this philosophy, showcasing just how fragile this mindset is as a double-edged sword. Dragon Ball Super Broly director Tatsuya Nagamine speaks on his feelings about Saiyan nature in this time period during an interview in V-Jump, saying that as much as Saiyans spout on about pride, they have really lost their original pride. They are simply tamed by Frieza and follow his orders without much question. Bardock, according to him, is a Saiyan who represents a pure warrior, unbound to the nature of the current Saiyans. He shows mercy at certain points, he holds some love for those close to him, and he breaks through his limits in battle against stronger opponents. In this way, Bardock is kind of reminiscent of the Saiyans of long ago, maybe even the ones of Yamoshi's time who opposed the wickedness of his race. The tragedy of all this being, he's the only one prepared to stand up to Frieza, and no single Saiyan at this point could ever be enough to stop such a monster. As we know, Frieza would go on to destroy the planet along with nearly the entire Saiyan race in an instant.
Yeah.
No matter what version you watch or read, the only one who even tried to stop Frieza was Bardock. This destruction would then be relayed to any surviving Saiyans as a giant meteor wiping out the planet. Funny enough, in Dragon Ball Z's anime, King Kai explains to Goku the history of the Saiyans leading up to their demise, explaining that it was a meteor that ended them for good. Now, in retrospect, this can be seen as the anime going off what Toriyama gave them at the time, and it was eventually retconned into King Kai lying to Goku's face to hide the existence of Frieza. So Goku
that's
would be
fair.
Like, wow,
From
he
a
sounds
certain
really
point of
strong.
view.
I want to fight him. But with some of the lore we have about Saiyans now, I feel the way King Kai describes the meteor incident now is really interesting. He says that, like Earth, Planet Vegeta had a kami, a god, that watched over the planet. But, being unable to bear the wickedness of the Saiyans, he used his powers to pull in meteors that destroyed the entire planet.
Dang.
This, to me, seems like a very interesting parallel to the internal conflicts of the Saiyans on planet Sadala, of a righteous-hearted member of the planet, potentially even a god, rising against the evil Saiyans and resulting in the eventual collapse of the planet. Perhaps King Kai once heard of or witnessed Planet Sadala's demise long ago, and applied it to the story of Planet Vegeta. Or I'm just looking too deep into things for
Yeah, going
parallels.
too deep.
Except that's not the case. Toriyama always had this in mind. Toei always knew the plan. It was all connected from the start. Regardless, this just speaks to the Saiyans' history of their evils always catching up with them. And so, the story continues with Goku's adventures growing up and meeting the remnants of his race. I don't really plan on going on about Goku's adventures here, maybe some other time in another video, but there are some parts I want to touch on from Nagamine's interview that I feel are relevant to Goku's journey. Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta, they are the remnants of the Saiyan society we know, and I'm not forgetting anyone else. Not at all.
Yeah.
While they may not have their home planet or people to go back to, they are still the same members of a race tamed by Frieza. They can never hope to turn against him, even if they despise him. And how can they? In a world where power rules all, you can do nothing but submit to the one in charge.
True.
Goku, however, was not raised the way they were. Separated from his people and culture, he developed on Earth with the good moral values of Earthlings.
And learned about
He would
family.
even come to reject his own Saiyan heritage. However, as Nagamine puts it, he retained his pure Saiyan nature. I'd like to share the idea that the Saiyans, as we know them, do not carry the essence of what makes a true Saiyan. They are tainted by the evils of the past, their wicked roots taking hold before Yamoshi's death, and their perpetuated evil through Frieza's hands only took them further deeper into evil. They are a far cry from what makes a pure Saiyan. A true Saiyan, at its core, is a being who desires fair combat and to push themselves. These are core values that every Saiyan left today believes, whether it be Goku, Vegeta, Broly, or even the Universe 6 Saiyans. Even Super Dragon Ball Heroes touches upon this. Yeah, you thought we were done with Dragon Ball Heroes? You thought we were done with games and weird side stuff? They're still relevant right now, baby. Vegeta faces Cumber and Turles, Saiyans who represent the height of their race's wickedness. They attempt to control Vegeta with their evil Saiyan energy, or whatever it is, and explain that evil is supposed to be the core of the Saiyan race, but Vegeta denies this. He controls the evil energy imparted into him, and explains that their nature is not defined by good or evil, but by aiming for higher power.
Which is very consistent with Vegeta. You know, I mean, he was all, you know, he over time really did develop that want to have more power than Goku, you know, but he had always been seeking more power by chasing after the Dragon Balls, but he was looking for the cheat code, he didn't catch on, but in the early stages of when we were going through the whole video, not this video, but the series, you know what I'm saying, and he came to a realization, that Kakarot was the real deal, the real the true essence of a Saiyan, like he was the true essence of what it means to be a Saiyan, and it makes perfect sense that once Vegeta achieved Super Saiyan Blue, that he would also develop that the old ways mentality, that it's not about good and evil, it's just getting more and more powerful, more and more strength, to achieve the to achieve. They don't believe they're peak. Goku and Vegeta don't believe they're peaking, even though they're Super Saiyan Blue. And with the introduction of the instinct, now they both of them trying to surpass that. Goku at the very least is trying to surpass the Ultra Instinct. Vegeta's trying to achieve that because he feels he's behind again. In this essence, so yeah, Vegeta has truly grown. He has truly grown from his childhood and his young years, and so on.
After this victory, he imparts onto them a lesson.
Train and come back if you still have a little bit of Saiyan pride left in you.
Yeah.
Or would it be better as like old Funimation dub Vegeta?
Train and come back if you still have a little
Unbelievable!
bit of Saiyan pride left
Absolute
in you.
madness!
Now, Nagamine feels that Goku and Broly are the only true pure Saiyans. Vegeta is close, but his pride as a prince interferes with his nature.
Right.
Broly, having been divorced from Saiyan society his whole
like
life,
Goku,
has a kind heart and retains the wild fighting nature of a Saiyan's instincts. Though I don't know how Paragus didn't poison his mind like he did in Z, but I guess Broly just shrugged that off. Probably shouldn't have shot Ba in the ear. He wasn't corrupted by evil. He simply had a desire to defeat his opponent and to survive. Broly's pure heart but desire for intense combat resonated with Goku. Goku would take on the pride of a Saiyan when it came to certain situations, like fighting on their behalf against Frieza. But since Namek, he never really seemed to care about being a Saiyan anymore. Not that he outright hated being a Saiyan, but more like he didn't take any pride in being one. It just was what he was. However, Broly gave him a renewed sense of pride, a sense that Saiyans are far more than the evils of their past. Goku realized if Broly's nature is what it truly means to be a Saiyan, then he himself carries that true essence of a Saiyan within him. With this enlightened mindset, Goku goes to visit Broly at the end of his movie. He only requests that Broly fights with him from time to time, and that he calls him Kakarot. The Saiyan civilization will always be a fascinating subject to me, as different media and authors always come with weird and different ideas about their world and society. Even with all this entangled lore, they're like the most fleshed out culture in the universe outside of Earth and Namek.
True.
The story also only heightens Goku's journey of escaping their evils, accepting himself, eventually embracing his true nature. So, since I don't see Dragon Ball stopping anytime soon, I'm curious what other interesting and weird bits of lore we will receive about them in the future, and until then we can only wait and see. Thank you so much if you stuck around all the way to the end of the video. If there's anything I missed or you think is important about Saiyan culture, let me know down below in the comments. This is the first video I've done like this, and probably the most work I've done for any sort of project like this. I want to make more on all sorts of topics, not just limited to Dragon Ball. Until next time, guys, take care.
Yeah, big thanks to NRDzilla for making this video. This was very well done. Very well done. And it looks like he's looking to do more of these type of lore videos, so I'll keep an eye on it. Who knows? I gotta say, this was very well done, and being able to bring up Akira Toriyama's explanations, as well as Nomine, the director, the director, one of the directors, was very interesting on how they chose to approach it. Although I do find it weird that Akira Toriyama went with S cells, came up with S cells, like George Lucas with the midichlorians. Oh my gosh, that's That's a bit on the heartbreaking side there. So yeah, I mean the Saiyans most definitely are very fleshed out, and it looks like Toriyama really was putting in the effort to really exploring their culture and everything, and I could probably see why that is, because of the fact that they not only are they what would a warrior racist culture look like, you know? I mean, you could really tell that Toriyama was fascinated by it. He really loved that concept, and he really dove very hard into it, like really fleshed it out. And I get, and from what I see, it's like Goku is the good part of the Saiyans, and of course by extension Broly, because he was able to see Broly's pure heart. But Goku, in and of itself, the character and design, Toriyama was definitely trying to make Goku the best part of the Dragon Ball universe. You know what I'm saying? Like this is what a Saiyan should be or could be, if not for Frieza, Vegeta and his dad, you know, doing the things that they're doing. You know, they're very nomadic. They clearly sound like a nomadic race from the way Toriyama designed it and everything. And which is really smart, because sometimes nomadic races are all about fight. It can be sometimes about fighting, foraging for food, resources, and so on. Sometimes they got to fight to do so, you know. And they developed from that a fighting culture from that until they found a moment to settle down. Frieza definitely exploited the Saiyans very hard, and it was very cruel. You know, very, very cruel. And just to give, well, no, because we don't know if that was... No. Sadala was the original planet. And the reason why I say that's fascinating, that's the thing that I find fascinating, because a lot of science fiction that's set on Earth don't refer to humans as Earthlings or Earthers, you know, or anything like that. They're just called humans. But then, like in Star Trek, you go to Cardassia, you have the Cardassians. You go to Vulcan, you have the Vulcans. You go to Bajor, you have the Bajorans. The Ferengis, it's Ferenginar. But Klingons and humans are the only ones whose planets they're not named after. Their race is not named after. It's not Kling, like they tried to, like Roddenberry tried to do in TNG. It became Konos. And with humans, it's Earth. But all the other planets, you know, it's more ethnicity than race. You know, they're named after their planet. You know what I'm saying? And so that's pretty cool that with Sadala, you know, the race is called Saiyans, but the planet is called Sadala, much like our race is humans, and we come from planet Earth, which is pretty cool. I gotta say, in terms of building a culture, Toriyama did a very good job. He did a very good job. They're very interesting. They're very fascinating, and and this is very inspirational, especially for my current writing right now, my current book, because I got so many different races and cultures. Countries, ethnicities, and so on. You know, saying it's like what is the culture like, and so on. And I look forward to be able to deep dive into it. And this is a very good piece of information. You know, deep diving into how he perceives his characters and so on. And I like it. I like it a lot. This was a very well done documentary, and I call it a documentary because you know, it's not just NRDzilla's perspective. He incorporated, you know, quotes from Akira Toriyama and others in terms of what the characters are supposed to be like and so on, and what came into design. It's pretty fascinating. Pretty fascinating, you know, what was in their mindset, you know. And yeah, this just makes the Saiyans even more fun, quite honestly. It's always good to flesh out a culture in your writing, to make them more interesting, more fun, and fascinating. And I'm very anxious to get to that point in my own story, because you know, it's cool. You know, world building is cool. World building is great. You know, and it makes your characters more fascinating. Makes your main characters more fascinating in terms of what they think of their own people, or how they interact with others, and so on. Those are all the cool, fun things readers like to enjoy, especially if you want to do supplementary books to flesh out many of the races, like we've seen presented with all these resources that NRDzilla relied on to understand the Saiyans better, from comics to the anime, and put it all together. It's usually tricky because you have to because sometimes some of those may have been retcon out, as NRDzilla pointed out. Certain characters got pointed out, and then you also have characters that would probably be multiversal, like in the case of the Saiyans in Universe 7 with Kaba. So yeah, very good, good job, very good job, very good pieces of information here, and yeah, the Saiyans are pretty cool. So head on over to Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and grab yourself a copy of The Impossible Man, a strange fantasy novel written by me. You'll find links to the book in the description down below, along with links to other merch such as pins, stickers, t-shirts, music. Enjoy the products. Thank you for your patronage. And if you happen to have a copy of the book and did a lore video on The Impossible Man, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And if you're interested, you could join me on my live multi-stream on Twitch and Kick every Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I do lore research, Japanese cultural studies, gaming, and more. I look forward to hanging out with you. So, until the next round of Dragon Ball research, thank you all for joining me, and I wish you all a good night. Buenas noches, and oyasumi nasai.